We want to welcome you on this morning. Hope everybody is doing okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The goal is to provide, for this webinar, this goal is to provide a clear understanding of civil rights and the requirements of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, state agency, and the school food authorities for those organizations that are participating in the school nutrition program. But this is a makeup webinar, which means a lot of this content was shared during the policy updates in the spring. So if you have not heard this information before, then this is again a makeup webinar. So I just wanted to make sure I provide the information to you before. All right, so the goals and objectives of this webinar um, is to provide a clear understanding again of civil rights and the requirements the U.S. Department of Agriculture, state agency, and school food authorities have for those organizations that are participating in the school nutrition program. You may ask, what are civil rights? They are the non-political rights of a citizen, the rights of a personal liberty guaranteed to U.S. citizens by the 13th and 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and Acts of Congress. So during this webinar and after this webinar, you will be able to define civil rights in the school meals program, identify required compliance areas, and also implement the civil rights requirement in your school meals program. All right, so some of the aspects of this civil rights training will include how do we collect and use data? What are we required to do as far as public notification systems? How do you process a complaint? How do we review compliance as far as when we come on site for either an AR or technical assistance? How do you resolve noncompliance? What are your requirements for reasonable accommodations of persons with disabilities? What are your requirements as it relates to language assistance? And then also how to resolve conflicts. So again, why are we doing this civil rights training? It is an annual training. It's required so that individuals involved in all levels of administration of programs that receive federal financial assistance understand the federal law, the regulations, the instructions, the policy, and all other guidance. So this is again an annual training that's required for the state agency and then also for the local agencies, and then you're going to find out also for your subrecipients. Again, I just mentioned this, but state agencies, we are responsible for training, for receiving training ourselves, and then we're responsible for training our subrecipient agencies on an annual basis. And you all are our subrecipient agencies, the SFAs. And then you all are required to train um, the local sites, including frontline staff who interact with applicants or participants. And again, this is the annual training. You're also required to train new employees before they begin program activities. And then any volunteers must receive training appropriate to their roles and their responsibilities. All staff should receive training on all aspects of civil rights. That includes, again, and this is why we're talking about this, the collection and use of data, how to publicly notify the public regarding what's available, complaint procedures, resolution of noncompliance, the requirements. You all are required to know what are you required to do by law to provide reasonable accommodation for people with disabilities, and then requirements for language assistance and customer service. This document, the FNS 113-1, is our base document. This instruction applies to all programs and activities for any school, district, facility that is receiving federal funds, whether you're receiving them partially or completely. The Civil Rights Food and Nutrition Instruction was issued on November the 8th of 2005, and they are in the process of updating it. It's been a long process, but they're in the process of updating it. So as soon as it has been updated, we'll make sure that you are able to get to the link so that you can download it at that time. But right now, this is again our source document. So you want to make sure you either have it printed out if you desire, or at least have a link to it on your computer so that you can see what exactly it shares regarding our responsibilities as it relates to civil rights compliance. The purpose of this instruction is to establish and communicate policy and provide guidance and direction to the USDA FNS and its recipients and customers and ensure compliance with and enforcement of the prohibition against discrimination in all FNS programs and activities, again, whether funded in part or wholly. And again, if you do not have this document, I highly, highly encourage you to pull up this link or just type into the Google search FNS 113 USDA and it'll pull it up for you. Just make sure that you have it so that you can reference it as needed. The assurances to qualify for federal financial assistance, the program application must be accompanied by a written assurance that the program or facility will operate in compliance with the civil rights laws and will implement non-discrimination regulations. Now, this assurance that we provide is also a part of our annual agreement. So when you sign the signature pages for the annual agreement back in the summer or early fall, then you were agreeing to the laws as it relates to civil rights. Again, a civil rights assurance has been incorporated by all between the which was in agreement, I'm sorry, with the state and local agency, and then you all also have a written assurance that you should have available between your local agency and subrecipients. If you're looking for program specific assurance language, then you want to look at the FNS instruction dash one, and you're going to look at Appendix B and then look at the FNS 74 form. Also, just FYI, SFAs that contract with food service management companies to provide food service to students are responsible for ensuring that their FSMCs are in compliance with civil rights requirements. Please note that the assurances are binding on the program applicant and its successors, transferees, and assignees as long as they receive assistance or retain possession of any assistance from the USDA. In addition to the assurances, we have our legal authorities, which is basically the law. What does the law say about civil rights as it relates to the protected classes? So you have Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination based off of race, color, or national origin. And then you have the Civil Rights Restoration Act of 1987, which was issued to ensure non-discrimination in all federal programs whether the programs are federally funded or not. Just so you know, no one in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. So if you note, this slide covers race, color, and national origin. And then Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 covers the protected class of disability. Other protected classes, the legal authorities as provided by law is the Age Discrimination Act of 1975, which ensures that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of age, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination because of their age. And then also you have Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which eliminates discrimination on the basis of sex in any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. 7 CFR Parts 15, 15A, and 15B talks about additional discrimination as far as definitions and what we cannot do as it relates to the law, as it relates to education and disability. And then the Executive Order 13166 talks about what we are required to do with persons of limited English proficiency. And then if you want to read a little bit more, you can look at USDA LEP policy guidance, which also talks about the limited English proficiency, what we are required to do by law. So how do we define disability? On September 2008, President George Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act amendment, and this is a very broad definition of what defines disability. But as you can see on this slide, um, it covers a broad spectrum of disabilities and it also provides coverage for to the maximum extent permitted by the terms of the ADA. So what we're going to do on the next slide is just give some examples of what could be considered a disability. Disability can relate to major life activities, meaning their functions such as the immune system. We have up here things that you could physically possibly see, caring for oneself, performing manual tasks. We normally think of disabilities for someone, whether or not they're impaired in their walking or their hearing or their speaking, but also it includes functions of the immune system, things that you cannot see. So don't assume that someone may not have a disability because their disability is linked to something that you cannot see, such as the functions of their normal cell growth, digestive, bowel, bladder, neurological, brain, respiratory, circulatory, cardiovascular. So it's not just something physical that you can see, it could also be something that's internal. All right. So that you'll know, faith-based organizations have equal opportunity for participation in USDA programs. 7 CFR Part 16 notes and ensures a level playing field of faith-based organizations and other community organizations in USDA programs. This can also be accomplished by clarifying that faith-based organizations can use space in their facilities to provide USDA funded services without removing their religious art, icons, or scriptures. And this ensures that no organization that receives direct financial assistance from the USDA can discriminate against a program beneficiary on the basis of religion or religious belief. So we've used the word discrimination several times in the first couple of slides. So as you review this definition of what discrimination is, we're going to take a closer look based off of the protected basis, but it means different treatment, which makes a distinction of one person or a group of persons from another. It could be intentionally, by neglect, by actions, or lack of actions. And discrimination in this case of civil rights is based off of the 6 protected classes. In the food and nutrition programs, there are 6, and you can, if you want to say 8 because of what's besides sex, and you can say 8 protected bases or classes. FNS Civil Rights Division, they're in the process of updating the non-discrimination statements and the and justice for all posters, or they have already updated. We haven't received them, but they have already updated the non-discrimination statement, and they're working on the injustice for all posters. But if you notice that they have now included gender identity and so sexual orientations as protected bases. So that's why I said 8. So 6, 8, depending on how you count it. On May the 5th, of 2022, the memorandum clarifies prohibition against discrimination based on sex in all FNS programs to include a prohibition on discrimination on the basis of gender identity and sexual orientation. And as I said, they are still working on the posters. I'm going to say this probably a couple of times because I know we get this question often. If you submitted your name and information and posters that you needed earlier this year, possibly last year, then we have your name. If you have not requested new posters, then I ask that you reach out to me, and we're just keeping a list right now. And then once we receive notifications that the posters are coming, then we'll make sure to get them to you. But as of now, we do not have the new posters, and we also do not have an expected date for them to be received. All right, so we talked earlier about public notification, what our expectations are. And so, what we are required to do is make the public aware of our services and our programs. So, we must have a public notification system. The purpose of this system, again, is to inform applicants, participants, and potentially eligible persons of program availability, our program responsibilities, what our non-discrimination statement policy is, and also how they can submit a complaint if they need to. School food authorities must make program information available to the public upon request. You all have to make sure that you are prominently displaying the injustice for all posters, that you're informing potentially eligible persons, applicants, participants, and grassroots organizations of programs or changes in programs Something that we may not think about is you want to make sure that you're conveying the message of equal opportunity in all photos and other graphics that are used to provide program or program related information. So you want to make sure that your graphics are diverse, and then also make sure that you're providing appropriate information in alternative formats for persons who has disabilities, and also want to make sure that you are meeting the needs of those who have limited English proficiency. So the three ways that we do the public notification is you want to make sure that it's evident and is very highly advertised, the program availability. If they have a complaint, how do they submit a complaint? How do they file a complaint? And what process do they have to follow? And then also the non-discrimination statement again should be posted prominently so that people will know what their rights are as far as it relates to civil rights. At a minimum, the non-discrimination statement should be on application forms. It should be on notifications of eligibility or ineligibility. It should be on your notice of adverse action form. It should be on your program webpage, and then it should be on public information, including public literature. The non-discrimination statement, this is the poster, and I'm looking at the non-discrimination statement. This what I'm going to suggest that you do. Make sure you have the poster up. Make sure that it's the correct poster. When you're looking for the non-discrimination statement, make sure that you either go to our website and get the statement that's on our website, or go to USDA FNS. Make sure you put in USDA FNS non-discrimination statement, and make sure you choose the correct one, so because there are two depending on which program that you operate. So make sure that you have the correct one as is provided by either again on our website, or make sure that you have the one as provided on the USDA website. If you need copies of the poster at this time, and this is the current poster that's on this slide, then you can go to USDA's website, and you can print that down. You can print that from the website, or you can reach out to me and we can provide you with some posters. We still have a few in stock, so if you need some to kind of hold you over till we get the new ones, then reach out to me and we will make sure that you receive those posters. The non-discrimination statement, this is the correct non-discrimination statement. Again, if you go onto the USDA website, I think at the very bottom, so that you make sure you pull up the right one, at the very bottom it has the date of December the 9th, 2022. So again, make sure that it is the correct one for FNS and not the one that I think is for another federal program. All right, so we are halfway through this. So I'm going to do one more slide, and then we're just going to take a quick break just to give some announcements, and then we'll finish up. This is not a long webinar, but we do want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. All right, and the question that we receive often is, which statement do I have to use? Um, we're required to have the entire statement except for in special occasions. If it is a special occasion and you absolutely cannot fit the entire statement on your program material or a specific material, then reach out to us so that we can confirm that it's okay to use the shortened version. But again, the correct version is the one that was on the previous slide, and you want to make sure at a minimum that that statement that was on the previous slide is again on application form. So that's your free and reduced application. It should be on the back side of your free and reduced application. Any notification of eligibility, we're finishing up verification. Very good. So you want to make sure that any notification that they are maintaining their benefits, or that they are no longer their benefits are going to be reduced or ended, then you want to make sure that that non-discrimination statement is on that letter. Again, the notice of adverse action, you want to make sure that they know what their rights are as it relates to non-discrimination. Again, on your web page, it can be on that initial page that people will go to when they access your program, or it could be on, yeah, you want to make sure it's on that main page. And then if you have questions about additional pages, then reach out to us and we can help you with that. And then any public information that goes to households, you want to make sure that the correct non-discrimination statement is on there. All right, so we're going to just take a quick pause. The time is 10:20. We're just going to take literally a 2-minute break. And I know that's an odd number, but we're going to take a 2-minute break and then we're just going to keep going. But just as an announcement, we will provide a certificate at the conclusion of this webinar. Um, I'm not sure. Donna, can
Yes.
you, is it going to go to the people who register, or can you just provide a little bit insight as far as how we're going to do the certificates?
Yes, at the end, I'll have a slide up with the QR code so that you can complete the evaluation directly on your phone. But I also follow up with a follow-up email with a link and the QR code to the evaluation. And once you complete your evaluation, you will receive your certificate immediately via your email. So it will be available very soon after we conclude the webinar.
Okay, and if there are two people on this one webinar, how did you want to do that?
Each person, we won't be able to capture attendees that are on that if you are not logged into the webinar. But if you would please complete the evaluation, that's the only way that we have. Or I don't know how you feel about this, Jacqueline. If you would, if there's a second person or third person watching together and you're not logged in, if you would just send Jacqueline an email, let her know everybody that's sitting in with you. That way we have some record of who it has attended the webinar.
Okay, that works for me. All
Okay,
right,
good.
we're going, huh?
I said very good.
Okay. All right, thank you, Donna. So we're gonna keep going. Like I said, this is a short webinar, then we'll take a couple of questions at the end if you have any. All right, so we have talked about the non-discrimination statement, and we're going to move on to discrimination complaints. All complaints alleging discrimination on the basis of the protected classes, race, color, national origin, age, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability, either written or verbal, must be processed within the time frames as indicated by law. Any person or representative alleging discrimination based on a prohibited basis has the right to file a complaint within 180 days of discriminatory action, and only the Secretary of Agriculture may extend this time under special circumstances. The complaints may be written or verbal, as well as anonymous. The use of the form, and the form is in the FNS 113-1, is towards the back, but the use of a form cannot be provided as a prerequisite for acceptance of a complaint. But there is a prototype form in the FNS. So in other words, if someone submits a plan, you can't say, well, you have to get a form first. You can't do that. You have to go ahead and document the complaint as it's coming to you. And also, if you can't find the complaint in the FNS 1 -1 instruction, then you can just pull up USDA discrimination complaint form, and it shall pull it up in English and the Spanish translation. A complaint should include the name, the address, and the phone number of the complainant, the location and the name of the organization or office, the nature of the incident or action, the names, titles, and business addresses of persons who may have knowledge of the discriminatory action, the dates during which the alleged discrimination action occurred, and the basis for the alleged discrimination. When there are complaints of discrimination, they are forwarded by the state agency, so you all need to forward them to us, and we forward them to the Civil Rights Office for processing. In response to the complaint, then a letter of acknowledgement is sent to the complainant. And then also, if it's an age discrimination complaint, those are referred to the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service within 10 days for mediation. Um, Ideally, the parties are encouraged to resolve the issue at the lowest possible level as quickly as possible. And then once the issues are resolved, if there are findings, then corrective action is required. So we're going to move on from complaints and talk about what the requirement is as far as racial and ethnic data collection and reporting. State agencies, local agencies, and other subrecipients are required to obtain data by race and ethnic category on potentially eligible populations, applicants, and participants in their service area. We have various systems for collecting actual racial and ethnic data. And you have to make sure that it's established and maintained and consistent for FNS programs, with the exception, and the only exception is for certain FD distribution programs, but that's not applicable to us. Ask all program applicants and participants to identify all racial categories, which means they can choose more than one category um, that apply when they're doing their free and reduced application. And then self-identification is the preferred method of obtaining this data. So if you look at your free and reduced applications, or also when they are filling out applications, I believe initially when they start in school or coming into a facility, then you're dealing with ethnicity, and then you're also dealing with race. So that's the two question format when you're doing data collection. In instances where racial ethnic data is collected via online, provisions must be made for applicants to self-identify. The ability to verify this data by some manner of signing a printout must be available. It must be collected and retained by the service delivery point for each program as specified in program regulations. You want to make sure that you maintain the information for 3 years plus the current year, and that's just our record retention requirement. Make sure that only the appropriate authorized individuals have access. And then there will be times, and I don't know if you've had to do this as of yet, but there will be times when this information is requested to be submitted to FNS, to the state agency, and then forwarded to FNS. Earlier, we talked about the requirements for limited English proficiency. In August of 2000, there was an enforcement of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It stated that individuals with limited English proficiency, or in other words, individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand English, that they cannot be discriminated against because of the language barrier. So it is important that school nutrition programs provide outreach in other language as needed. Recipients of federal financial assistance have a responsibility to take reasonable steps to assure meaningful access to the information and services that they provide on the following factors: the number or proportion of LEP persons eligible to be served by the program, the frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of the program to people's lives, and then resources available to recipients and cost. You want to make sure that you, as a local agency, and then also your subrecipient agencies, that they explore the most cost-effective means of delivering language service to LEP recipients. How do you define language services? You want to make sure it could be a bilingual staff, it can be telephone interpreter lines, it can be oral interpretation services, written language services, or community organizations and volunteers. And also, when you're providing a language service, applicants and participants cannot be asked to bring their own interpreters, cannot use a child to interpret, and you want to make sure you use a qualified and a competent language resource. So these are all the requirements as it relates to limited English proficiency. A question that we often receive is, do we have free and reduced application templates? On our website, we have the English version, of course, but if you need other additional languages, then you can go to the USDA FNS website and look up translated applications. If you don't memorize, or if you're not able to remember this link, then just type in the browser USDA FNS translated applications, and there are, I believe, over 60 options of application translations. It may not be exactly the same as our template that's on the website, but that's fine because it's USDA's template. And also, you will note that the date will not be 2023 unless they updated them recently. It may be prior year, but it's still fine because it's been approved by the USDA. So we'll accept that here in North Carolina if you need to use that for translated services. As we move on from limited English proficiency, we're going to talk briefly about compliance reviews. We review our local agencies through administrative reviews. Sometimes we may look at it on technical assistance reviews. The local agencies are required to review your sub-recipients, and there are three type of reviews. We have the pre-award, the post-award, and the special review. The pre-award is well, I'll tell you that on the next slide. So those are the three reviews that we have. The special review may be like a for cause review. State agencies, when we have a review, we have to report significant findings to the reviewed entity and also to FNS. So I'll talk about the pre-award. The pre-award requirement um, is done prior to you being accepted, not accepted, approved to operate the school nutrition program. So in other words, this is a document that prior to you being approved would be completed by your consultant and signed off on and put in along with your permanent folder. The post award is completed as a part of administrative reviews. Um, and it can be triggered by many concerns. It can be an unusual fluctuation in participation of racial or ethnic groups. It can be based off the number of complaints filed, information from grassroots and advocacy groups, unresolved findings from previous civil rights reviews. FNS and state agencies conduct routine compliance reviews as identified by FNS 113, FNS Instruction 113-1, and program-specific regulations and policies. And we look at such things such as, do printed materials contain the current or the correct non-discrimination statement? Is and justice for all poster displayed appropriately? Are program informational materials available to all? Is data on race and ethnicity collected and retained? So these are some of the things that we look at when we are looking at your civil rights area when we come on site for administrative review. Other things that we look at are eligible persons and households. Do they have an equal opportunity to participate? Are records coded by race or ethnic origin? Do you have again, your posters displayed in a prominent location? And are you using the correct non-discrimination in all locations, whether that's on your free and reduced application, communications to the household, or on your website? We want to make sure that that is the correct one. Additional areas that are reviewed during the post-award are availability of program information, whether or not you're maintaining your racial and ethnic data for 3 years plus the current, how are you processing complaints, and then are you providing continuing education for all employees, and are you not only providing it, but are you also maintaining the records for it? On occasion, there will be times when the state agency has to conduct a compliance review for cause. Um, it could be because we found out that program participation data indicates a particular group in a specific area is not benefiting from an FNS program. It can be due to patterns of complaints of discrimination, or reports of alleged noncompliance by the media, grassroots organizations, or advocacy groups. It can be reports of alleged noncompliance made by other state agencies, such as Department of Health and Human Services, or even at the federal level, the Department of Education. And we find out that those issues, there are complaints and that those issues need to be resolved. When we receive complaints or hear of issues of noncompliance is a finding based on facts that any civil rights requirement as provided by law, policy, instruction, or guidelines is not being adhered to by a local agency or a subrecipient agency or even the state agency. So this is the definition of noncompliance. And when we find it's a factual finding, it's not just hearsay, it's backed up by fact. Examples of noncompliance, it can be denying an individual or a household the opportunity to apply based on the basis of a protected class. It can be providing FNS programs, services in a dissimilar manner, which means it's not consistent on the basis of a protected class. It can be selecting members for planning and advisory bodies in such a way as to exclude persons who are members of a protected class, or even selecting FNS program sites or facilities in a manner that denies an individual access to FNS program benefits. And lastly, or it could be an over-verification of categorically eligible participants. Noncompliance may result from a variety of situations. Compliance reviews may be scheduled or unscheduled. We will follow up on previous findings of noncompliance or investigate reports of noncompliance. It's specific to an incident or a policy. If there is a history of statistical underrepresentation of a particular group or a pattern of complaints of discrimination, these are all the ways that we could either find out about noncompliance or look into noncompliance. When we find out that there has been a report of noncompliance, the effective date of the finding, once we do our investigation or our review, the effective date of the finding of noncompliance is the date of the written notice to the state agency, the local agency, or the other subrecipients. And if we determine that noncompliance, if we find out that noncompliance has been determined, then we will take steps to immediately obtain voluntary compliance at the lowest level possible. All right, so that concludes, as I mentioned, this is not a long webinar, but it is a important one. So this concludes our presentation on civil rights. I hope that the information that you have heard has been useful or that it serves as a refresher of that which you already know. And I don't know if we have any questions, but if we do, we have a couple of minutes where we can answer questions.
Okay, Jacqueline, I don't see that we have um, any questions about the content. I'm sorry, I'm reading while I'm talking. We do have one question about the presentation being available, and I will post a link to the recorded webinar on the School Nutrition website by tomorrow, and we may send just a quick notification about that. So that's where the presentation will be in case you need to watch it again. Um, let's see. Okay, we do have one question, just making sure we are good to display the old posters until we receive new ones.
Right, you can keep up the old posters. You want to make sure that you have the current non-discrimination statement. So you want to make sure you check that to make sure you have the correct one. But the posters that we have are what we have until we receive the new ones. But you want to, again, you want to make sure that your non-discrimination statement is updated on all the material that you have. And if you need non-discrimination state posters, if you need the ones that we have, then just let me know. We can send some to you.
Okay, and we have not received any additional questions.
All right. Well, if you do have any questions or if you think of anything as you go throughout your day or go throughout the rest of your week, then please feel free to reach out to me. Again, my name is Jacqueline McGowan, the compliance specialist with the Office of School Nutrition at the Department of Public Instruction. Again, if you have questions, please let us know. It's always an honor to serve you or to provide a presentation to you. But if there are no other questions, then I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.
All right, very good. So I am going to switch over to my screen now, and there will be a QR code there for the a very short evaluation, and that will give you access to your um, sorry, to your share one more time. There you go. Jacqueline, can you see the page?
I can. Thank you, Donna.
And that will give you access to your certificate of attendance. And actually, I'm going to put the link in the chat in case anybody does not want to. And in case somebody does not want to or doesn't want to do the QR code. Alrighty, so of course things never work exactly like you intend them to. Okay, so I will send out the link afterwards whenever I notify that that the um, the recording has been posted. I'm not able to get to my chat as long as I'm presenting. Don't know why, but that is the QR code. So let me check to make sure that everything is working properly. If anybody has any difficulties, just let me know. And completing the evaluation or receiving your copy of the certificate, keep in mind that you have to make sure your email is correct so that the certificate will come directly to your email. Also, be sure to put your full first name and last name. And if possible, please do not abbreviate the SFA because we have some SFAs that have similar um, names. So I see Terry Hobson says she's unable to scan. Okay, Terry, if you would just send me a quick email, donna.knight@dpi.nc.gov, and I'll make sure you have that. And in the follow up, the link will be in the follow up as well. So you should be able to get it. So yeah, I see that we have several people that have completed. Email is donna.knight@dpi.nc.gov. Very good, very good. So I'm just going to leave the QR code up just a few more minutes, and then we can close out, Jacqueline.
All right, that works for me.
Okay. Is that Jacqueline? If you could put my email in the chat, someone's not able to get to the email or the code.
I just put it.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, it looks like the QR code is working or the link is working fine. So we got people still completing, but I think everyone probably has it by now, so we can close out. If anyone doesn't have it, just put something in the chat really quickly, and I'll leave it up another. Okay, very good, very good. You're welcome, Terry. All righty. I think that will do it. Keep in mind that I will conclude this information in a follow-up email. So if you did not get it, you'll be able to get it in the follow-up, and you can receive your certificate of attendance. Looking for SFA number. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm reading messages that are popping up. All right, Jacqueline, if you want to close out.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Have a good afternoon.